Very pleased to welcome to America Now our next guest, and that is Tara Galeano. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. And Tara, you are a sex therapist.
I am. I'm a sex therapist. I get to talk to people about sex all day long.
How are you, a married lady?
I am a married lady. I've been with my husband for 20 years.
Well, congratulations on that. I'm just thinking, if you're talking about it all day, then when you get home, it just popped into my head. This is how my brain works anyway. You know, that the last thing you're going to want to talk to him about is that.
Well, that's okay, because we don't always have to talk about it. We can just do it.
There you go. So how long have you been doing this?
Well, I've been in private practice for 12 years, and for the past 6 years, I've focused on sex therapy.
Mm-hmm. And was there an epiphany moment when you thought, I know?
Yes.
There was?
I saw so many clients who wanted to talk about their sexual orientation, their sexual preferences, their relationships. And as a graduate student, I had actually no classes on human sexuality, so I thought I needed to get up to speed and really get educated. So I became certified as a sexologist, and then earlier this year, actually, I got certified as a sex therapist.
So did you have a business card that said sexologist?
I did. Board-certified sexologist, yes.
Michelle wants one of those. I'm telling you, Michelle wants one of those. Okay, so tell me, who goes to sex therapy?
That's a great question. I find adults who are courageous enough to talk about sex with a stranger. Ultimately, people don't know me, and they open up to me and talk to me about all sorts of intimate details of their life, and I really respect their honesty and courage to come and talk about sex.
See, a lot of us would think that was creepy.
To talk about sex with a stranger. With
a stranger, yeah.
I think it could be, but ultimately I'm an expert in the area, and I help people have better sex.
You know, maybe I'm just overly sensitive, having raised two daughters on my own. So, you know, they're still not allowed to date, by the way. I've got signed contracts from both of them. They are signed in crayon, but I still think they're legally binding. So, okay, this is the question that Michelle, I hope you're paying attention, because I know this is the one you wanted an answer to. What happens in sex therapy?
That is a great question, because a lot of people get concerned that they're going to have to take off their clothes, and it's actually not like that at all. What I do is talk therapy, so people are just talking about sex. And I actually think that it's really difficult to talk about sex, because what I find is it's easier for people to have sex than to find the vocabulary to talk about it.
Mm-hmm. Okay. You must have had some creepy moments, though. I mean, I'm just out. I think my imagination might be running a bit wild here, but I'm assuming you've had some creepy moments.
Well, you know, it's interesting, because I would have to say I never actually have. By the time people have called me, made the appointment, spoken to me about what they want to come see me about, I feel like they're really, they're really honest people. They're everyday, ordinary folks. I'd say the creepier part is screening the phone calls to get them into my office. I get some weird phone calls, as you can imagine.
Yes. Yeah, and I'm sorry. I've told Michelle to stop calling you, but I'm sorry. Yes. We're talking to Tara Galliano. She is a sex therapist. You can join that conversation and maybe ask her a question, as long as it's broadcastable, on 877-927-ANDY, 877-927-2639. You know, Michelle always talks, by the way, when we're on the air. It's really interesting how quiet she's being right now. So what are some of the general issues that clients come to see you about?
As a sex therapist, the bread and butter issues that I see are erectile dysfunction, premature ejaculation, desire discrepancies, and inhibited sexual desire. So the last two are really about people not wanting to have sex, or one of the partners wanting to have sex and the other partner not wanting to have sex.
Mm-hmm. What's usually the root cause of that?
Well, it's interesting, because it's actually a lack of desire is not necessarily due to boredom or age. It's actually because the intimacy has left their relationship. Romantic love and sexual chemistry are short-lived and unstable. I'd say, you know, the honeymoon period ends for most people after about a year, and then they have to go into a deeper sense of being with each other.
Mm-hmm. So, you know, the date night is important, yeah?
You are right on. That's exactly what I prescribe. I ask people to have date nights. Oftentimes, people or couples get into this pattern where every touch is a demand for intercourse, and then they don't know how to be affectionate with each other, and they don't know how to slow down and just relax and be romantic with each other. They don't know how to court each other.
Mm-hmm. So date night and a cuddle. A
cuddle, yes. Oftentimes in heterosexual couples, women really like to cuddle and men like to proceed for the intercourse. They like to go for the orgasm, and it's really about the cuddling for a lot of women.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. We're talking to Tara Galliano. She's a sex therapist, and you're in, where are you? I've forgotten. Where are you? You're in Colorado, aren't you?
Correct. I'm in Boulder, Colorado.
There you go. I didn't forget. I thought I forgot, but I didn't. So you can ask her a question. We must make sure it's broadcastable at 877-927-ANDY, 877-927-2639. If you'd rather email it to me, you can do that at Simon Talk Show, or one word, Simon Talk Show at gmail.com, and we'll try and get that question to Tara. Okay, Tara. So, who do you see more of, men or women?
Ironically enough, I see a lot of men. When couples come to me, they're oftentimes in a heterosexual, monogamous couple, so I see fairly traditional couples. If an individual is going to come to me, oftentimes I see men who are struggling with erectile dysfunction or premature ejaculation.
Mm-hmm. And normally you would expect them to go to a doctor as opposed to a therapist if they had that problem. I mean, a lot of men would regard that as a physical problem. We're all aware of the little blue pills that are available now.
Yes, and I would agree with you. I think we need to rule out biological basis for erectile dysfunction, and when they've figured that out, that there is no biological basis or that's been handled, then often there are psychological symptoms that still linger. And so they feel anxious about, are they going to be able to sustain an erection? Are they even going to be able to have an erection? And so there's a lot of psychological issues in terms of anxiety that I need to work with them with.
Mm-hmm. So that's one of the top three things you see people about?
Absolutely, yes. Yes.
Okay,
what's the men coming in for that?
What's the weirdest question you've ever been asked?
That's a good question. The weirdest question I've ever been asked.
I try and only have good questions. I kind of try and throw away the bad ones so that we only bring the good ones on the air.
Yeah. The weirdest, I don't, let's see. I guess I don't ask any, or I don't answer any personal questions with my clients. It's really about them. And I'll get a lot of clients who are confused. Well, actually, I'll tell you one story. I had one client who came in, and she had this myth. I think oftentimes people have sexual myths that influence their behavior, and she had always believed that she could get pregnant from sitting on her neighbor's couch. And even though she consciously knew that wasn't true, we had to work around having to figure out how she could work with that issue, because she had internalized that as a teenager, that her mother said, don't go over to the neighbor's house, don't sit on the couch. And she had thought that she could get pregnant from sitting on the couch, and that's why her mother didn't want her to sit on it.
And yet the logical part of her brain said, well, this is clearly patently ridiculous, and yet she still had an issue with it.
She still had an issue, and it's interesting because it brought up all sorts of issues for her, but sexual issues.
Mm-hmm. Fascinating. All right, what are the top 3 tips that you might want to give to some of our listeners who are listening right now?
Well, one of the biggest tips I have is that sex is more than intercourse. It's more than orgasm. Sex, I see, is a whole menu of behaviors, activities, interactions, and I think that most people really need to broaden their perspective on what sex is. So that's number 1 for sure. And then number 2, I think that couples really need to integrate non-demanding pleasuring, which is touch, affection, and they also need to include erotic scenarios and techniques in their repertoire of being together, and I think that's really important. So looking at how they're together when they're not having sex, but all the other behaviors that they have with each other. And then the third piece is that this is a process. I think that's really important, that they're working together as a team, and that benign neglect, when they don't actively look at their sex and sexuality, then sometimes it undercuts their sexual desire. Then they're not feeling erotic with each other. So it really takes some work, like you were suggesting with dates. That's a great idea. It's a great way for couples to reconnect.
Okay, well, look, we've had some fun with this, but there's a very serious side to what it is that you're doing. We've got a caller on the line I'd like you to talk to if you're agreeable to that, and that is Tom in California. Hi, Tom. How you doing? You're on with Tara. You got a question for her? Very
good, and thank you for taking my call.
You're welcome.
About 9.5 years ago, first of all, I'm in a heterosexual relationship, married for 15 years. My wife and I lost our son 9.5 years ago at birth, and it greatly affected my wife to a point that she never wanted to have sexual intercourse or have any more children. 8 years ago, we did have a child, and it was a very difficult pregnancy. And after our daughter was born, she no longer.
Oh, did we lose him? Well, I think we got the. Oh, there you are. So she no longer wanted to have sex at that point. We've got you, Tom. Let's let Tara deal with that. Hey, Tara.
Hi, Tom. Thank you so much for calling. And so what I'm hearing you say is that your wife didn't want to have intercourse anymore after the birth of your child. Is that correct?
That's what he said, yeah.
The first time was after the death of our child at birth, and then after the subsequent birth of our daughter.
Yes. And I just think that a tragedy like that really impacts us on a very deep level. As a mother, I can just imagine the loss of a child. I've never had to live through that, so I'm sorry for your loss, truly.
Thank you.
It's an awful thing to experience. And I can really see where it's a difficult place for your wife to be, and that she really needs to understand how to reconnect to herself sexually. And I think that oftentimes we as mothers put others first, and we don't look at our own pleasure and our own satisfaction. And I think that there's some guilt in that there's some guilt that we feel that we don't deserve that. And I think that when we're able to embrace that we absolutely need that we need to nurture and support our partners in a sexual way and ourselves, that then we're able to move forward. But I think the grief is really important to be dealt with first.
Okay.
We sought out counseling. We went to counseling for almost 3 years. We stopped going to counseling. It's been 5 years now since we stopped counseling, and the situation is no better. Well, can you give me any direction to, should I probe for more counseling? Are there certain grief counselors that deal with this better? What can you tell me?
Yes. Well, what I would say is that going to see a couples counselor is a great idea. And the reality is that a lot of couples therapists don't talk about sex. So when sex is the issue, you really need to see a sex therapist, somebody who's not afraid to talk about sex when you're coming in as a couple. And so I understand that you went to see a couples therapist, and I would recommend to see somebody specifically for sex therapy. And if your wife feels like she needs to see an individual counselor to deal with the grief, I think that might be a way as well. Also, I know that there are bereavement groups for women who have lost children, and I think those are an excellent opportunity for women to be in a setting with other women and really normalize the experience because they've all lived through that horrific experience.
Right.
Tom, thanks very much for the call, Tom. We appreciate it. We're having a fascinating conversation with Tara Galliano. She's a sex therapist, and we got another call for you, Tara. We got Hugh in Jacksonville. Hey, Hugh, how you doing?
Doing fine. How are you doing?
I'm great. You're on the line with Tara.
Well, I'm 75 years old and still active. I try to find a woman, and I'm single, in anywhere near my age group, let's say from 65 on up. And many of them have never experienced oral sex. And it's something that I like very much, but it's very difficult to get them. Some of them think, oh, that's nasty, and I think quite differently. And it's I just wonder how I should handle that situation.
Tara?
Well, hi, Hugh. Thank you so much for your question. I'm so excited that you're 75 and still sexually active. I love it.
Well, I love it, too.
Yeah, I think that's such an important part of making sure that we are healthy as we grow older, that we are sexually active. And I think finding a compatible partner is difficult.
It is.
What I would recommend is that if you like oral sex and you like to give oral sex and you like to receive oral sex and your partner is not so into that, that maybe you can find something that they are into and that they really like, and then maybe you can work both into the repertoire. So you're giving oral sex or you're receiving oral sex, and then maybe you're doing something to stimulate her. That isn't something that you normally do, but she really likes.
Yeah. You know, recently I dated just a wonderful woman for about a year, and she was very much like, she was married for 52 years to the same man, and the only man that she had ever been intimate with. And when I finally did manage to encourage her to try it, I created a monster. And,
okay, Hugh, that's enough detail there for me. I guess that's a possibility as well, Tara, right?
I guess so. She must have really liked it. That's great.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, this has been absolutely fascinating, Tara. By the way, Hugh, thank you very much for your call. I think you got your advice there. Fascinating, Tara. I'm very pleased we got you on today. That's really great of you.
Thank you so much. This has been a pleasure, Simon. You know, I hope to share more about having better sex on America Now in the future.
There you go. Do you want to give out a website or something?
I do. People can contact me at bouldersextherapy.com, and I send out free newsletters. I've got a great blog that you can read on my website, and I often host workshops that people can fly into and come to beautiful Boulder, Colorado.